Oh. Hey, everybody, welcome to the work session of the Board of Trustees, Port Jefferson Village. Today's February 12th, and the time is 5:05 p.m. Clerk Perillo, would you like to confirm a presence of a quorum?
Yes, thank you. Mayor Shepro?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Laux?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Hill?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky?
Here.
Thank you. With that, we do have a quorum. Attorney Moran and Treasurer Gafka are with us as well.
Thank you. Can everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Today we have a presentation with our social butterfly analytics partner and consultants. Jennifer Hildreth and Teresa Scogan are here, and we have a PowerPoint presentation that Jennifer Hildreth is going to lead us through. Come on up, Jen. And
that was prepared by the amazing Teresa Scogan.
That was prepared by Teresa Scogan, and as a team, they worked through the whole entire thing, I'm told. So this is a contract that has been in place since July of 2023, but prior to that, this team worked on behalf of the village for, I believe, 7 years prior to that 2023 contract. And when we signed the contract with Social Butterfly at that time, it was for 1 year. And then it was observed by the board that the contract had been going on for longer than a year, and it flew under our radar. So Trustee Hill had asked if we could have a presentation of the analytics of Social Butterfly from the work that they do. So I asked them also to complete to provide a scope of the amount of work and all the things that Social Butterfly touches in as much as their contract enables them to, and helps, and the services they provide to us as such. So that is what they'll be presenting today, and I can't wait actually to see it. And listen, this is a working session, so if this group has questions while Jen's presenting, can we ask them in between?
It would be probably best that I can move through it to the end, and then we'll take any questions you may
I'll
have.
ask again, if the board has questions in the middle of your presentation,
Oh, is that
it
how you
okay?
people play? If that's, it's your game, so certainly.
It's work session, so it's very informal and not,
Okay, then.
so, and if they don't have questions, then there's no need to ask. So
It is not my circus.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and good evening. I am very happy to present this comprehensive report for all of you on a number of notes. I think that most of you know myself and Teresa based on our longevity here and our access going all over the village and in the building. We're everywhere all the time, or as much as we can be. I also neglected to print out this program for everyone to save paper and be mindful. It's right here. If anyone feels that they would like a printed copy, an emailed copy rather, we would be more than happy to provide you with it. But it was an enormous amount of paper for everyone to be looking at and then throw in the garbage or use as scrap.
Okay, just get a
Unnecessary.
copy to the clerk and she can provide
will
it to
certainly do
anyone
that.
that asks. Thank you.
Okay, so as I said, my name is Jen. That is Teresa. Social Butterfly is a team. We work together. We have two separate entities. We work in tandem, but we often work separately. Do you not hear me? Okay. Then I will. So let's get right down to business, people, because the one thing that I know and I'm certain of is that a lot of people are not familiar with what goes on behind the scenes. It's one thing to wake up, roll over, grab your phone, start scrolling, and we all doom scroll in the middle of the day and when we're in traffic and God knows what, illegally, whatever. But for us, we want you to see a full sphere of what we do before you actually see the posts come out. So first slide, what do? I happen to be the social media end of our team. And as you can see, we post multiple times a week depending upon news and events. We receive requests from many different departments. They may not even all have been listed here. And we went over our records pretty comprehensively. The clerk, DPW, parking, recreation, building and planning, the bid, the chamber, and the Arts Council. We post upcoming meetings for the Board of Trustees, planning, and zoning. Part of how we have created the enormous audience that we have is by cultivating our audience, which is done by inviting casual likers and commenters to follow our page. People can simply click on a post and go, okay, that was a good picture, it was a cool story, I liked it, but it does not necessarily mean they're following our page. Our practice over the course of our tenancy has been to constantly cultivate our viewers so that they are following our page, not just liking our posts. And the last comment on my side, and mind you, there's a myriad of things that we didn't list. These are the basic things that we do. There are many, 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 many comments and questions directed at Facebook and Instagram now. And I don't know how familiar all of you are with social media, but it seems that actually over the last 7 years, it has kind of become the norm as opposed to people making phone calls or sending emails or even above and beyond going to the website. People seem to think there's a little guy inside my computer that's awake 24/7 that wants to answer all their questions all the time. And we do the best we can to do so. So on the website posting side, Teresa is well-heeled and in charge of posting the changes, making the changes, coding everything, rearranging everything. And as you all are aware of, we underwent a massive change this year with moving to a new platform for our website. That was an enormous undertaking, and thank you, big hand to Teresa. It is still in the works in some areas that need to get, the bugs worked out. Anytime you transfer from one platform to another, there's a lot of residual changes that will go on over the course of time. So Teresa receives requests from, and these are just a few on the list, the clerk's office, recreation, the treasurer, parking, building, planning, zoning, the justice court, the tax receiver, the registrar, stormwater management, code enforcement, and then we have what's new and special interest stories. She also manages to upload the agendas, the minutes, the legal notices, all of our calendar events to post and update them as there are changes. Unfortunately, the Ice Festival had to be postponed this year, so we have to make certain that our calendar coordinates with the Chamber of Commerce and the bid calendar, that we try to be congruous with all so that we do not confuse our visitors or our residents as to when things are happening. We also, over the years, have developed new pages for, since this new coming administration, with new boards, committees, and councils, along with the posting of their upcoming meetings. The content. What do we post? Well, here's just a few. We convey the following types of information: weather warnings, the farmer's market, grand opening, closure, breaks in between or closed for weather, beach closures, park repairs, road closures and repairs, loose leaf, branch pickup, which is a very popular one with our residents. We get a lot of questions about that on the social media platforms. Parking changes, public notices for meetings and changes, building closures, rare, but it does happen, weather incidents, holidays, the gallery exhibits at the Village Center, and the not-for-profits info and events, which I will talk more about in a coming slide. So part of what you all don't see behind the Oz curtain is the back-end prep work, which, again, here is just a sampling of what the back-end prep work means. We have communications meetings with the administration and the graphic artist, sometimes with the head of the Department of Recreation as well, plus Zoom and conference calls, which we have had a myriad of based on the transition of the website, which Teresa headed up as well and was on almost daily through that transition with the company that provided it for us. We are always reachable, and I'd like to say always, but that's never 100% true because people have babies and people pass and weddings and things that you can't be available for. But generally, we are always reachable for the posts or prep for something that has to go out quickly. late nights, early mornings, and weekends. So I also want to just share with the general public and the trustees. Teresa and I have opposite schedules based on our lifestyle and our business. So one of us handles the early morning shift and one of us will handle the late shift so that someone is always attending. Someone is always listening. If the mayor or the clerk or one of the departments reach out to us after hours, someone is always listening. Projects like the Port Jeff Village Voice, which we're all really proud and excited about. I'll get to the read rate on that shortly. They do take time to develop, but what the public sees is the finished product, not all the back-end prep work and assembling the stories and organizing the graphics and choosing the appropriate placement of all of the stories. We work closely with the graphic designer for the village to plan the graphics. We have rebranded. We created new board meeting thumbnails. And then, of course, something that you all won't care about or even know about is the social media platforms tend to change rapidly without any notice. That's always fun. Recently, they changed from a square format for Instagram to a rectangle 5x4 format, which in turn made us have to change all of our graphics. That was unplanned and fun, but we got it done. Photography. So I'm not the queen photographer, nor am I a professional photographer, but what I do is travel and traverse the village regularly, and I know you see me out there, sneaking around, taking photographs of landmarks, historical items, weather, local residents, anything that I feel like is a good positive interest story for the public. I do that shooting myself all year round. I'm lying. Teresa does that shooting as well on occasion because she happens to be a photographer. I'm sorry. Yes, Mayor? Oh, you too. Your pictures are generally not usable. Sorry. Just saying, and I only tell the truth. We also work with outside vendors in our tenancy, sometimes during the tax season, working with Edmunds. So just to ensure that the website is ready on the deadline for the people to pay their taxes and that all the forms are fillable and proper and in the appropriate placement. We also try to attend visually every Board of Trustees meeting and to follow up with the departments on whatever had transpired so that we can stay abreast of what we need to be communicating in the village's social media platforms and the website. Building relationships. So part of building our relationship is not just with our audiences. It is not just with our administration. We also have over the years, and more so even recently during this administration, have collaborated with the not-for-profits and other vendors. I can't really explain how that happened. I think it was just a good assembly of people wanting to give their time to sit and think tank about our events and things. And it just so happened that we all kind of pulled it together to agree to meet quarterly. And it's been going quite well. James from the BID has attended. Barbara from the Chamber has attended. So we kind of get a nice sampling of all the different areas of the village at one time in one place so we can all be on the same page. Part of the relationships are sharing with those partners. The Long Island Explorium is one of our partners. The Conservancy is one of our partners. The Greater Port Jefferson Arts and Education. So we try to share their posts when it will please our audiences and our residents and public to keep everybody abreast of all the things that are going on in the village, not simply a silo of the just municipality and our events. Weekly, I attend the farmers market. I meet with the vendors. I try to make sure that the vendors, now again, this is kind of a little bit out of my scope, but I feel like it's important. We have an enormous business at our farmers market. A lot of the times the vendors are not really helping themselves in the way of doing their own social media. So what I have taken on as a pastime per se, when I'm going to make my own purchases, I like to visit with the vendors and remind them. This is how people will know about them and come see their products. We can promote them all we like, but they need to, you know, the saying, God helps them who help themselves. God helps those who help themselves. I try to kind of purvey that message with the vendors at the farmers market regularly. Teresa and I have volunteered at many, many events over the years. That is just our MO. We like to be in it to win it. It's always good to be on site to take photographs for Instagram stories, which are stories that come across your feed but do not last for more than 24 hours. So it's quick. It's just a snapshot of what's happening around the village and all of our activities. We also take notes at the Board of Trustees meetings, again, for our own edification, to stay on top of exactly what's happening. It's one thing to convey the news in social media or on the website, but you really need to drill deeper to understand what is actually happening. This is not just a job, it's a municipality where there's information that is crucial that the public hear and understand. We can only convey it if we first hear and understand it. So here's another for instance, and this is kind of immaterial because we get thousands and thousands, and I just picked a cross-section. Here is a for instance, without reading them all and boring you. These are the type of questions that we get on the social media pages because they can access us. I try to respond to all of them. I'd say the only time people don't get a response are when they're making a statement, a comment, and not posing a question. So generally the questions are about the market, parking, activities at the village center. A lot of times questions come in about Brookhaven activities. If you look at the last question, is the launch ramp parking lot done yet? Well, the ramp and the parking lot is owned and operated by the town of Brookhaven. And we, at the time that this was, we had not been notified of the completion date. In fact, I don't know if we have been notified of the completion date yet. But those are the types of messages we get. And I find it really important, and I have found it important since we began this contract, that it's important to people to be heard and responded to. We look foolish and negligent if we do not respond. So I am the person who responds to all those messages, and I take that responsibility very seriously. Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. So here's some fun stats. These are neighboring villages and municipalities, some similar in size, some larger, and some smaller. But I want you to take a peek up at the top at our total of page likers, and I can't see from here. Oh, but I can see it on my screen. At 18.9 thousand. Just as a slide rule, when I came on initially, when I came for this contract and I was awarded this contract after, being put up against several other companies, we were at 5,000. So in approximately 7 years, we've grown to 18.9 thousand, which I'm pretty proud of, considering our residency is just about that. I want to say, what was our last census of the amount of residents we have? Can somebody tell us? Pardon? Okay, so that's a lot of likers, which means there's a lot of people that are not residents watching us. There are people that are travelers and visitors and people from other local communities that are big fans of Port Jeff, and we love that. We want people to come and spend their money and have good time in Port Jeff. Northport Village, they're just below us. Town of Huntington, think of the size of the town of Huntington versus Port Jefferson. Greenport Village. But the one that really shocks me the most, and we have been talking about it over the course of years, is Patchogue. Patchogue is a bustling, beautiful, busy village that I love, and I do visit often. But I want to say, in my limited capacity to know the actual stats, I want to say their residency is 4 times what ours is. So they are posting a lot less, but they are also retaining a lot less. I'm not really sure why that is. But based on these stats, I'd like to say that we're at the top of the heap. It feels good, and we worked hard to get here. Next stat I will give you. How does our village compare? Okay, so again, it's kind of a repeat of what you just saw. And if you look at the bottom, you can see typically higher than others, higher than others. Content interaction, similar to others, which doesn't surprise me. In my experience, the same people are the people who will attend meetings, respond to statements, and comment on things. Because people that are concerned are generally and genuinely concerned. And they don't change their concern as the weeks pass. If they're looking, they're looking. If they're commenting, and they tend to stay in that mode. Okay, so these, again, I'm not going to read every single one and bore you all because you have a whole rest of your meeting to go through. But these are the top posts reached for the last 90 days. Here's what's interesting about it. If you look at this list, and you can see it from your seats because I'm looking at it closer up, really the most viewed posts are municipal information. People want municipal information. The news, there was an accident, there's a road closure. Those have been the most popular posts recently, which I find really quite interesting. That means that our residents are reading and looking, and they're getting what they need out of social media, as opposed to having to wait a month to watch the public meeting. We are posting real-time information as it is given to us by the village. As fast as we receive it, we share it. So those are interesting stats for the type of posts that were reaching the high levels. The top engagement, similar to the previous slide, it's about what posts were popular, who engaged with which posts. And again, whoever would like to get an email copy of this, we'd be happy to provide it, and you can scour it and read it more clearly and closely. The breakdown of followers we also found very interesting, but not surprising. Most are women. Many are from Port Jeff, but many are from our neighboring sister towns. The last 28 days, these are our stats. You can read them again. These are a 28-day stat list. We certainly could go back further or what have you, but it just would become a massive paperwork nightmare. So if you would prefer that we give you more, we can certainly provide more. We have them all. Post with the highest views this was quite interesting. Do you all recall the accident on Cliff Road in Belterre on November 24th? There was, thank God, not a fatal accident, but it was a vehicular accident. And somehow, and I'm not really familiar with how the information got misconstrued, but when it finally got to the village righted the information and handed to us an official statement, which we, in turn, Teresa, uploaded to the website, and we simultaneously posted to the social media. That was the most popular post. That was the post with the highest views of late. So people really want to know what's going on. It's kind of almost as if we have our own news channel, in a sense, on our social media channels. Okay, so these are our constant contact stats, which are also pretty amazing. As Teresa and I have been here through 2 different administrations, constant contact has always been used. We find it now to seemingly be more effective. If you look at the first one, welcoming our new code enforcement leadership, there were 3130 sends and 1,930 opens, a 63% open rate. I don't take credit for that because I didn't write that piece. We are simply putting it out to the public, but it's getting a lot of interest. It is more than we have ever seen in our tenancy here. The second was the Port Jeff Village Voice, issue 3, 3,409 sends with a 67% open rate. Also amazing. Very excited. Very proud of it. Yes, Zena?
How do we manage the send rate? What's the send list against? Is that email villagers emails or sign
It is people that I'm sorry. Teresa, you want to take that?
Yeah.
No. Can you give her a mic so she can answer these tech questions?
Yeah.
I was just going to say thank you. I was just going to say that was the list that residents had initially signed up for years ago. It was the e-report list that turned into this list. So people have to opt in or sign up. They're not going to get there because they were on a recreation list. So in addition, we've put out messages on social media and on our website that if somebody goes there, they can fill out the form to sign up for that list, and they'll be included on the email list. But they will have to specifically sign up for the Village Voice updates.
And do you have any stats on sort of the trend on that? Like how many,
when
did you start sending those or posting those, and how many additions did we get?
Yeah, I think it was about 150 or so since we posted that. I want to say maybe a month and a half ago. We had the form up there, yeah.
Okay.
And we can pull those stats as we go along if you want to see them as they grow. So again, the third one had 1,800 sends, 1,058 opens, which was a 61% open rate. Also, pretty good. Okay, we're going to go to website analytics. And Teresa, I'm going to actually let you speak this sheet, only because you're the website master and I would rather not misexplain it. So come up and join me for that one. It's the only slide you have to explain. Would you like to hold it?
Okay, this is a little hard because we've converted the site and we decided to go with a new fresh page for analytics. So this only goes back to August. It's really hard unless you're looking for a specific thing when you're looking at analytics. You want to know, are you looking at the website, the home page, a specific page? Are you looking to see who's reading a story? So when you look at this, we went 28 days back because that's the default. So we left it at that because you're going to get very varied things. The PJVV issue 3 wasn't there a month ago. So if you're looking at it from then, it's going to be different. So it really depends on what. Oh my God, I just dropped all my papers. It depends on what you're looking for. So I just did a general overview of our most visited pages, which is what you're seeing here. The most visited is our home page, and then they're obviously clicking to other things. The second one is search pages. So sometimes somebody's going right to a search instead of going to a individual page that they're looking for. And this just shows new users versus returning users. Again, some of the new users would probably be attributed to the new website, but this is only for the past 28 days. So these are legitimately new users, 8,100. Some of them are probably spam and bots, but you can't really tell and narrow those down. But you can kind of see the trend over time, and there's no specific, you look at the user retention, it's just kind of up and down for both. And this kind of tells us where the users are coming from, whether they're going directly from the website, are they searching for us, are they coming from one of our links from somewhere. Again, you can't really tell unless you're really drilling down to a specific subject. If you're looking for hey, how did they come to us for that Belter article? Where did they get there from? Then you can look more specifically about those items. Yes, Kyle. Yes.
Thank you. On the previous slide, there's spikes in visits. Do you know what was happening on those days?
We will absolutely find out. I'd like to know myself.
I believe the Village Voice was the 25th. So you do see there's a little bit of a spike right here before the 26th. That could be it. I'd have to look through some of our posts, but I can definitely get that info. You're welcome.
Good question.
So this was the... and this kind of just does give a little, breakdown of the engagement rate, the average time per session. Some people are clicking on quick, looking at it, going on to something else. And that's kind of our last slide. Like we said, anything as far as stats, if there's something more specifically what you want, we can definitely gather that, whether it's a time frame or a specific subject. But, it's I'm going to walk away now.
You did terrific. She likes to be behind the curtain and not in front. Does anyone have any other questions that we can answer right now?
And I got one. Trustee
Yes, Bob.
Krinsky and I were at a NICOM convention, class rather, last weekend, and they were saying that governments have to change over to a .gov from a .com.
Correct.
You're
We are in the process of that right now, in fact. Teresa, you want to speak to that or no? It's in the process. That's what we can say.
And it'll be done by, I think, December 21st is the deadline.
We are
they said.
very well aware of that,
Okay.
but thank you for bringing it up, Bob. I hope you had a good time at your NICOM. I'm sure you learned lots of good things. And I appreciate whatever you bring back to share that with us. And in closing, I do want to say also, everyone feel free if you have any questions at all about anything. We are as available as rain. Call us, email us. We're happy to come here, speak with you. Whatever you like, we can do that for you. Transparency is the key. We are the same. We want to help you and give you the information that you're looking for. You're the board and trustees and the mayor, even though your pictures are not usable.
Okay, I have
Anybody
a question.
else?
I have a question.
Please.
It's kind of a joke, but so do you think all those stats are because I keep going back to the website and clicking on it over and over and over again? Because I am constantly looking for things on our
funny,
website.
but not really that funny.
Okay, thank you. Glad to hear that.
Anybody else?
No other questions?
No,
Barbara.
Oh,
came down to the calendar, and I was on there a couple of days ago, and it was super easy.
Yes.
And whatever I clicked on came up right away.
We'd love to take credit for that, Barbara.
Jen, can you
However-
repeat Barbara's?
Barbara was saying that she was
can
having-
say it again on the microphone,
Oh.
that's fine.
I was just stating that I'm a website user rather than social media, and I've had difficulty in the past finding things I needed on the web. And in the last couple of weeks, I've found things very easily, and when I clicked on it, what I needed came up, where in the past, things just weren't, even the calendar wasn't showing up. So I want to thank you because it's all coming together.
Don't thank me, but isn't it nice to hear good news? Teresa, that you had said that they were working through those glitches on the 404 errors. You know, it's a slow process, understand, when you're going from one platform to another. And there were lots of glitches. Uh-oh, here she comes. She's going to correct me and tell you all what really happened. Watch the cord.
Thank you. I just wanted to say one of the problems that when we converted was not a problem, an issue that we have to kind of work around is I had a lot of shortcuts on our website before. I had things like porchf.com / say the Village Voice would have been /PJVV. Their format is a little different. So now you see numbers appearing in there. I can't fix that because that's how their system is. And part of the issue we have is when we used to post on social media and we would say the shortcut to something was like visit porchf.com / PJVV because it's something easily rememberable. Facebook does not like those redirects that I've had to create on our website because Facebook puts a ton of like a big string of code in it. So when you try that, it's not going to work coming from their links. So that's why sometimes you see those long links and there's really not much we could do about it. But we post it because it is clickable on Facebook. It's not on Instagram, but it's something that'll maybe say to somebody, oh, okay, I could go to the website and find it there. And that's, you know, to me, it's a challenge because I thought it was so easy that the registrar downstairs could say, go to porchf.com / registrar. Now you can, but it's not going to work from every platform. So I still have it set up, but you know, it's a little bit of a tweak that some places it might work and some not. So that's some of those things. It might have been a little bit easier in the past or just, you know, trying to figure out the best way to make it quicker. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I always say to all of the employees, if there's anything that you're getting a bunch of calls on, we can adjust. It's always a work in progress. It's not totally a canned item. There are sometimes limitations on things, but we could always change it to make it more effective. So input is always appreciated with that.
So Teresa, before you go, on the .gov thing, so just way back when we were talking about converting our website, number one, our Google platform suite to Microsoft Office, .gov was the third thing in the crosshairs. So we had always been planning, but we needed to do those two things first.
Right. I mean, to change your email from Google to Microsoft was a big challenge in itself. To change your email addresses at the same time and not knowing how that would impact everything is really scary. I mean, we're still working on some of the conversion issues of things that might have been left behind, even though it was a long time ago. So yes, .gov is in the works. And does your email also have to be by that date also? So, you know, it'll have to be like a double and, you know, do a forwarding for a while. It will probably be a little bit challenging, but the sooner we get it going and can, you know, work towards that deadline, it'll be better. But people just have to understand that it's always, you know, a bunch of moving parts, and sometimes you don't know until you start something what it's going to look like, but we're definitely working towards that.
You had a question, Kyle?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. And
You're
thank
welcome.
you, Mayor Shepro, for delivering on the request. I appreciate that. All these analytics extremely helpful. They were for our Facebook pages, correct?
Yeah.
Insta-
No, it's mostly Facebook on that. Instagram is not as used for our residents and viewers. I mean, it is, but as you could tell by the number of followers, I forgot what it was for, I think right, for Instagram. It's a lot less, and the interaction there is a lot less. Those are mostly people just like going, looking at a post to do something. They're not interacting with that, and not the viewing rates isn't as much, but I could definitely get you those. The hard part about Instagram is that you have to do everything from your phone. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at screenshots of tiny little things to then try and put into a, you know, it's not going to be a pretty format for you to see, but we could definitely run some of those for you. And as you can see, these were tiny fonts too, just even for like 5 posts, you're like, everything's super tiny, so it's
I
hard
want
to
to
see.
interject something about Instagram to note for all of you that are, if in fact you're not social media users. Because we are a municipality and we are here to present facts, news, and information, our Instagram is not the typical Instagram was created, the platform was created for graphics and art in general. People selling products, people touting themselves, influencers, locations, people, clothing, what have you. When you're using Instagram for your municipality, it doesn't translate exactly the same as a business would, per se. So I think we've grown it to a good degree, but because, again, we are, I hate to use the term serious, it's a serious page because it is an incorporated village. I don't think that the stats will ever match up to what the Facebook stats are socially. And
Or
remember,
what the Kardashians generate, right? Like,
you know, we're not selling breast implants and lipsticks, and we're doing different. We are putting out the news. This is a village. We are a business, but we're not a retail business. So it's kind of not actually the particular platform, but we use it because our young residents do use it, and they do look to it for information, even though it's not always as glamorous as I won't even use those people's name because I'm not one of those people. Uh-oh.
And I'll just say, well, because I was going to say Instagram is my go-to when I'm looking for something, especially when it's something that we've posted, because when I know I'm going to visually just look at that picture and read that story that it reminded me. So I do go there a lot, but we don't have many commenters or interactions the way we do for the community on Facebook. It's just the age group. I mean, if you go back to that slide on I know Jen went over it, but I don't remember how detailed with the areas and the age group. And you could just kind of tell here, the most of them are 45 to 54 is our biggest category, and women is, the most in that group. But I just think the target audience on Facebook ends up being a lot more active for us than Instagram. And most of the posts do go to both places. At the same time, there are a handful that maybe don't apply and would be left off of Instagram. But for the most part, things are in both places so that people can take or pick what they want to, where they want to read their story.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And do we do any, so I guess the social media strategy, most of it is information delivery, but I think part of it also would just be general promotion of the village for tourism purposes, right? Do we do any sort of promoted posts that might be outside the scope of the contract,
So-
but it might be something for us to
Right,
consider?
that's what I was going to say. I
Like
mean,
if
the
you wanna
mayor
be,
could
like,
speak to
boosting
that.
Ice Festival
You're
a week and a
familiar
half
with the
out.
bid, I assume. So the bid is really, that is what their business is, to bring business and commerce to our businesses. We always promote any of the events, the Ice Festival, the Harvest Festival, the Dickens Festival, as we are the hosts. So we certainly do promote them. Do we lend money to sponsor them? That is up to the administration, not up to us. But we certainly have the capability to do that. But again, I'm not here to tell people whose jobs are what. The Chamber of Commerce, the bid are really the people that are promoting those. They are their events. So we're just there as support. So that's not really up to us, per se.
You might use a boost opportunity to gain subscriptions to the newsletter or things like that, things that your calls to action that are needed to help communicate things that the village needs communicated, like, tax season. Let's boost that one. Let's say when the deadline is to pay your tax bill, that kind of thing. But that's a good thought, and we should keep that in mind
Appreciate
as things are being planned for social.
I just want to add that I am not a Facebook user at all, and so I do rely on Instagram. And for example, when the Port Jeff Village Voice comes out, like, that gets fed to me.
Right.
So it is helpful,
That's great.
and we should see about pushing that up
Yeah,
a
and
little
it's just
harder.
hard because you can't even link a story directly. You can't even link a story directly from Instagram. It would be nice if their platform was a little different, but it's hard. And we have stuff in the bio, but you can't put everything there. But like you said, if that's where you're going to check for your news, you're at least notified. And then you're like, oh, let me go to the website, and I know where to find it when it's on the website.
Okay, then. Thank you guys for having us. Anybody else?
Thank you very much, and thanks
quite
for all the hard
welcome.
work that you
Happy
put
to do
into
it.
putting this together.
No.
All right, I want to take a moment to go off the agenda for a second. Next up is our monthly reports, but I want to introduce two folks in the audience right now who are the new supervisor and assistant supervisor of our code enforcement department. We have Kevin Cooper, code supervisor, and Anthony Flamia, assistant supervisor. We're so happy to have you here. Welcome, and just I'm sure everybody on the board and those watching would love to hear from you a little bit about how your first few days have been.
Thanks, Mary. I appreciate it, and thank you to the board also for giving. I guess I speak on myself and Anthony. Thank you for the opportunity to work for the village. We find it a challenge, but we hit the ground running already, and we're already in the midst of changing things like the code webpage and uniforms, as you could see. My pants weren't in, or else I would have been dressed up. This is what we have so far for Anthony and myself. So it seems to be meeting with rave reviews. So I think we're going to stick with it. And then we're going to be also, reworking the other parts of the uniform, short sleeve shirts, polos, and things like that, the patch. And but we'll present everything, to you all to make sure it's okay with the village. So beyond that, we're just getting organized. There's a lot to go through, looking through the calendars. We might make some changes to that. And the biggest thing is just getting out and meeting everybody. Just, I think we've met or sat down with almost everybody in Village Hall. And then once I get my uniform straight, Anthony and myself, and hopefully maybe some of you, we're going to get out, and we're going to get out to all the businesses at least. And, just introduce ourselves. We're just waiting on our business cards, and we're going to get out to everybody. We are not desk people. Once we get everything settled in the office, we will be out. I will be out every day. We're not people that sit behind desks. We both came from patrol in our previous careers, and we will be out. You'll see me with the ticket scanner writing tickets, 100%, and I'll be out there. So, thank you again. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having faith in us, and we will work hard to make the village look good. So, if you have any questions,
Just, can you update us on, so you're working closely with Jim Murdocco?
Yes.
Right? He's in the process of, can you update us on his progress so far?
Yeah, so Jim has one class left in the New York State to get accredited as a code enforcement officer and a building safety instructor. Once he does that, he's going to be handling, along with myself, all the building and zoning complaints that come in from the town. Part of me reworking the code webpage is going to be to get an online complaint form on the webpage. So residents can make a complaint online, and I'll get it right away. I'll answer them, tell them I got the complaint and we're working on it, and then I'll give them updates, what happened with their complaint. They will have the opportunity, if you don't want to leave your name and address, you will be able to make a complaint anonymously. Also, the only problem with that is if we need an update as further information, we won't be able to get it. Mm-hmm. So also, we're going to create a code email address. If people don't want to do the online, they could just send me an email. And also, I'm going to have an easier way to call the code office to get complaints in, that I can get them in almost real time and get them out to my people on patrol. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So Jimmy's going to be, essential, in doing those type of complaints. So, yeah, and then the rest of my people, they're going to be out doing the quality of life enforcement and, parking throughout the village. So.
Okay.
All right. And also I have Anthony. He's going to be a big part of the emergency management end of it, and keeping our town secure. And he's very well qualified in working with that. Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, we,
okay.
Hello, everyone. Anthony Flamia. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it for the board and everybody here. With the Emergency Management Center right now, we're looking at the feasibility of it and implementing it. Just, the technology part and moving a lot of things from here at Village Hall up to there. And, what works and what doesn't work. And we're going to need some modifications in the Emergency Management Center up there as well. So we're just going forward, and we're just going to do this day by day. And it's, it's a monumental task, but like we said, we're going to do it.
So we've had a couple of opportunities for you to meet folks in the community. Last night there was an EMS dinner up at St. Charles that you were able to attend. There's a Highlands community meeting that, specifically for the residents of the Highlands that you'll be attending. So people will get a chance to meet you, see your faces, actually interact with you. And I think any chance that any members of this board see, and the treasurer, the clerk, anyone, if there's an opportunity that you see and you think it's important for Anthony and Kevin, or for there to be representation from the code office or the public safety, the commissioner of public safety, Trustee Hill, that would be a good opportunity to reach out either through the clerk's office or directly through the code office.
Yeah, until I get the webpage set up, my email is kcooper, COOPER @portjeff.com, and Anthony's is Flamia, FLAMMIA @portjeff.com. Please, you all and all the residents, please, if you need anything at all, just shoot me an email or call during the day up here at Village Hall. We'll be here. Okay?
Hey, Kevin, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So you're setting up, a new email. You've set up a form on the website to collect feedback. Can you speak to how you're thinking about streamlining that process? Like, how does that get enacted? Something comes in, and why is that,
Okay, so
kind of better
if
than
if a
how we used to
complaint
do
comes
it?
in, let's say someone's building a deck without a building permit. If someone wants to do the online complaint form, put down the complaint, the address, any particulars they have, it'll come to me. I'll assign it to Jimmy. Jimmy will open up a case in Municity, and then he'll do the investigation, and I'll be right there with him, running the case. A lot of this is just showing people how to do investigations and how to run cases. It's kind of simple once you get going. And then so what I would do with that complaint, if it's a named complainant, I would send a complaint acknowledgement out to that person saying, hey, we got it, we're working on it. And then, let them know if you need any updates or if I need any other information, we'll be in touch. Then when the complaint's done, if we go there and they don't have a building permit in this case, we will, take necessary enforcement action, whatever level we need to do. And then once our case is closed, once they do get a building permit or take the deck or whatever structure down, and we close the case, then the complainant will get a notice of action taken form. Or a phone call by me letting them know how, this is how the case was remediated. So that's, one case. If it's something like, there's kids every Friday night drinking in the parking lot, the quality of life thing, I'll put that out right away to my people that are on patrol. Make sure they address it, make sure they're addressing it. If we're working, I'll be out there on a Friday night, taking a look, making sure it's addressed correctly, contacting the complainant and let them know if they see it again to let me know immediately. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sounds like you've implemented sort of a funnel system so that it comes into one central location. And then
exactly. It's all about communication because we need to know
Okay.
what's coming in. I think the way they have it now, supervision might not know everything that's coming in, but I need to know everything that's coming in real time. So I check my phone constantly for emails and such, and I'll make sure that they get addressed right away.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, but there's a couple other things. The way they do the field reports now, I'm not really a big fan of. So I'm going to change that also. It's not effective or it's not efficient either. So how they issue a CC, they call it. That I'm going to change to. There's little things how my people are just what they're doing during the day and how they're notating it. There's just not enough of that. We need to know more where they are and what they're doing throughout the their tour.
So kind of a training.
Yeah, it's all about
process.
training and just, talking and just making, it's easy stuff. It's basic, easy stuff. And I think they'll enjoy that. It'll be a lot more structure, and, it'll be a lot more accountability and structure for everybody. And I think they'll feel better that way. Yeah. So,
All right, great. Good.
thank you.
Thank you
Anything
so
else?
much.
We're good? Okay, thank you.
They hit the ground running. Nobody needs to ask them to do anything. It's like amazing. Okay, now back to the agenda. We're going to go out of order on this. We're going to ask Stephen Gafka, the treasurer, to speak first, because there are a couple people in the audience who might inform and help work through some of the items that Stephen has on his list to talk about tonight. And this is the entire thing, everything, not just the things that people are here to talk about, your whole. We'll let you take one and done, Stephen, okay?
That sounds good. Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
Good evening to everybody. I'm going to start off with just an update on where we are with the fiscal 2026 budget and the timeline. I've met with the department heads for Recreation, DPW, the Director of Building and Planning, the Golf Maintenance, and the Golf Pro Shop side. I still need to meet with Clerk's Office, with the Justice Court, and Code to go over. And I've done a little bit with Code, but since they're new, going to sit down and really go through their budget, kind of gone through cursory review with them. And from that point, I'm going to start building up the budget with their requests to see where we are. How does that compare with maybe the projected revenues? And then set up follow-up meetings with the Commissioner of Finance, with Trustee Ugrinsky, with the department heads to go through line by line what may be the more, what their requests are versus what we might be able to fit within the budget. So we're on the second, we're in week 2 for February, heading into week 3. I think we're pretty much on time, if not maybe a couple, just a couple days behind. But it's the schedule I sent out to everybody was a little aggressive, but I think we're going to be in a good position to have a good tentative budget well on time. So that's the update on the fiscal 2026 budget. I also very pleased to announce that we did receive our reimbursement from FEMA for $897,000 for the recharge basin. This is a project dating back to 2021. We had not submitted a reimbursement for that time, and we are, pretty much 80%, 85% of the way done with that project. So we submitted this reimbursement request. It went through the process. The grant administrator was great in helping us, coordinating that particular aspect, and we received the money, and that should help pay down the debt that the village took out to get that project done. So that's a great thing. We're also working on, with the mayor and our graphics design, something to kind of show the public, how we're doing with all of these grants. I don't know, Mayor, if you want to speak on that at all.
Well, I was looking for, like a outstanding grant number that we are trying to pull back, think grants that have been approved or when they get approved. So there's a target number. I'm just going to say maybe it's $10 million. And that's not what the number is. But if it's $10 million, we just got $897,000, so that helps us tick up. So if you think in terms of, a capital campaign, and you just have one of those silly mercury thermometers that you check up and it keeps rising and rising, the needle keeps rising, mercury keeps rising, and then all of a sudden you're up to the top and get to start all over again. So that's basically what that visual to me is, an important visual to showcase the work that the treasurer's office and the grants office and the clerk's office is doing to sort of claw back that money that we were told we're eligible to receive and have borrowed against.
Yeah,
So.
It's a great idea, and it's a great idea from the mayor. I can give you, for our fiscal 2025, our outstanding grant that that has been awarded to us, 7.7 million. And we have brought in, including the chips, we have brought in 1.3, 17%.
So CHIPS are considered a grant?
It is considered grant aid, yes, and that's kind of a rotating number, but it's going to be pretty
Right.
consistent every year. But that's 17%. That one particular project for the recharge basin, that 897,000 was 88% of that grant award. So we have 12% left to recoup, and a number of other grants that are outstanding that we're hoping to really claw back soon in the near future. The fixed asset valuation, I'm still coordinating with the vendor on that. There's some follow-up information that I had to send out, including audit reports from 2006 all the way through 2023, because there's significant detail in those reports that they can use to help build out the valuation. And up until 2014, the previous audit firm prior to the one we just replaced had some of that information with those capital projects. So it's giving us a starting point to try and then build it out and see what that future depreciation is. So I have a call with them within the next 2 weeks to go over any missing items and to review what may still be outstanding. The current operating budget, and this kind of ties in, I'm going to tie in with some of the resolutions that are towards the end. We are, and I've been working with the department heads, we need to, and I'm going to be proposing to the board to bring the budget down with a budget amendment to cut 320,000 of revenue projections that we're going to come up short, and cut 320,000 of expenses. Basically, there's a lot of moving targets. We have some revenues, some pretty significant revenue streams that are going to come in potentially short of our goal and what was anticipated coming into this year. Some of that is environmental, home prices, our mortgage tax aid is reduced because homes aren't selling at the paces that they were a few years ago. Our fines are down a little bit, so on and so forth. It's detailed in the budget amendment. I have a budget transfer also to correct some of the over budget lines for those unanticipated expenses that sometimes push the budget past what was initially projected. One of those big items is our street leaf cleaning program. Historically, we've been around $80,000 every year for picking up the leaves on the street. And this year, the price went up and the amount of leaves went up, and it just blew well past that to $120,000 in that dumping fee. So
I'm going to guess that, I'm going to guess this, and it's a fairly good, fairly supported hypothesis that the later we started this year resulted in extra leaves being picked up, because leaves don't fall earlier, the leaves fall later, and I think that's why the schedule was created as such. And so it probably resulted in more leaves being picked up. And also the amazing social media efforts that went against promoting it. Just kidding. Sort of. We really promoted the heck out of that one. That was a popular social media post.
And well utilized, as the bill's determined. And then moving on, so that's that budget transfer. Basically, go ahead.
Sorry, can we talk about the leaf pickup for 1 second, just because it is in the context of a larger budget expense? Do we know how many weeks later it started than normal? Right? In the past, it usually was earlier.
Yeah, it started
'Cause
around Thanksgiving.
My suspicion was that the leaves were wetter because they were on the ground longer, and that's what made it heavier. So, if we could, if that's true, if we just picked up earlier, we can make sure it's cheaper, because there'd be less days to possibly be rained on. I don't know if that's worth running down, but I think it might be.
The level of rain would have an impact throughout.
Because most of the leaves were, like, the final week was sometime in December last season,
It was
right?
really late December, early January. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there was also, keep in mind that last year, while we started earlier, they ended up, because it was so early, that there needed to be another pickup and another round, which we didn't need to do this year. I mean, anecdotally, the DPW department in my discussions has said that the amount of leaves was just significantly more than last year. You know, how your observation, I don't know the veracity to that. Or
We can
it's a-
compare it against the weather reports. But point taken. I think it's worth a discussion, like to see how, next year, and when they're making a determination when to start, when to conclude, how that actually worked. A lot of the issues were the people were bringing their leaves onto the roadway way before the time that they were coming around to pick up. So it's an ongoing thing, and even Bob, you and I have discussed as the Commissioner of Public Works to pull together the people who have the most issues and have been most, vocal about it, and bring them in and let them sit down. And I mean, that one person had a lot of significant suggestions that he and his wife put together. So I think it's worth sitting down and going through it with them and do a little back and forth with them and DPW, just to see if we can't resolve and compromise and figure out if there's some happy medium for it all.
Thank you, Mayor. And then just going on to the next item, parking meters and the parking program itself. I did receive an updated quote on the parking sensor PUC program, and with the installation cost, if we didn't have our own DPW department do it, it's going to come in around $17,000 for those sensors for about 20 of them. And this is in relation to the discussion about the Chase parking lot and being able to monitor that. And that's software cost, and also the hardware of the pucks themselves. So I have 3 emails out to other companies to try and get comparable quotes. If I don't and nobody responds, I'll be able to put forward a proposition to maybe move forward with the proposal that we do have and have gotten a response on. So that could be coming either by the end of the month or by March.
So the 17,000 is complete?
Everything.
Okay.
And it is possible that, I have to have further discussion with DPW to make sure that they're capable of doing what's needed, and if they are, that may come down to about 14,000. In addition, there was, in discussions with the parking committee, there were some, and with the parking chair, there were some items that needed to be discussed related to the meters themselves and the program. One of them, parking stall demand reduction. I know Andy Freeling has met with the board and has discussed this in the past.
Andy, do you want to come up and talk about that? Do you all want to hear a little bit about that concept of parking stall demand reduction? It's from our planner. And it's a very, it's kind of a signature item for Andy right now. He's really been, he's talked to the zoning board about it. He's talked to the planning board about it. He's presented it to the architectural review committee. Does that cover the people that you've presented to?
Planning and zoning boards.
Yeah. Yes.
ARC.
Yeah.
Yes. And the parking committee, right.
Okay, and the purpose of this is to what exactly?
Just to give you a brief overview of what we've been working on with regard to trying to streamline and make the building process more efficient. So we've been looking at various different amendments and processes. But I've been very fortunate working here in the village of Port Jefferson. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board of Trustees. My work with the Economic Opportunity Task Force, the Parking Committee, the Planning and Zoning Boards really gives me a broad perspective on land use issues in the village. One of the things that I've observed, and you may have observed, is that we have some long-standing buildings that have been vacant for a while in our central business districts. They've been difficult to fill and reinvigorate with new businesses, partly because of the parking requirements that the village has in our code. So we've been working towards streamlining some of the village processes for existing businesses, We're working on seasonal outdoor dining, we're working on the parking code, and we're working on several other codes to try and expedite the building process. But with regard to off-street parking policy, we're looking at a theory called parking stall demand reduction techniques. And parking stall demand reduction is a theory out of congestion management from transportation engineers. It's a theory out of congestion management, and when we have densely built areas, we call around a train station, we call them transit-oriented districts. And transit-oriented districts, if you look TOD for short, if you look that up in the literature, you'll see that it is densely developed areas around a mass transit station or hub. So you can imagine that the South Village around the Port Jefferson train station, that C2 district is an ideal transit hub or transit-oriented district. And the reason why some of these things are transit-oriented districts are valuable and important is because we have a cohort of the population, the younger population, if you will. Most of us look back and there's a younger population. Well, their economic dynamics are different than the baby boomers. They came out of college with a lot of debt. They don't want to own a home because of that debt. They don't want to take on a mortgage. They don't want to own a car because of the gas and the maintenance and the cost of paying those payments. So this cohort is looking for different walkable communities where they can live and walk to the things that they need, their services, their food, things like that. So this cohort wants to live, the millennial generation wants to live in walkable land uses. They want to have transportation options, the bus, the train, Uber, Lyft, Zipcar, those types of things. And we have that. We have that in our South Village C2 Commercial Business District and downtown in the C1 Commercial Business Districts. They are natural TODs. So parking stall demand reduction techniques then encourage developers and employees and business managers and sometimes even visitors to provide amenities and incentives that persuade residential occupants or the employees or the employers to use a mode of transportation other than their single occupancy vehicle. We identified 22 some odd congestion management techniques that could be put into development projects when they come to the planning board that would reduce the demand for parking. So some of those, one very popular one, and I'm just going to mention it, is unbundling the cost of parking from your rent. Another one is ride-share programs. There are pre-tax community benefit programs where an employer can take money out and put it into a dedicated pre-tax fund, and that money can be used for transit tickets and passes. Compressing a work week is another way of getting congestion out of peak times. Bicycle facilities, storage for bicycle facilities, showers for people who like to to ride their bikes. Those also reduce the demand for parking. If you can imagine, if you live uptown and you work downtown, you could take your bike right downtown and you don't need a car to get around. We're not saying that in Suffolk County you're not going to need a car, but a lot of families, even a two-person family, has more than one or two cars. So we want to get people to start thinking of reducing the number of cars and getting benefits out of it. And let me just back up to unbundling the cost of parking, because we are using that in the village to some limited extent. But what that is if your rent is $1,500 a month for your studio apartment and there's two of you living there, but I tell you that it's really $1,000 a month for your rent, but I'm charging you $250 per parking space, you might say, I could save myself $250 because we live in a TOD, in a transit-oriented development. You work at Stony Brook, you could hop on the train and go to Stony Brook, or I could hop on the bus and go to points other. We don't need that second car. We need one car to do our grocery shopping and things like that, or visit people, but we don't need two cars. And that's the idea, to incentivize people through different ways to not bring their cars into the commercial business districts. So my department believes, we've talked to some of the boards, that given the TOD nature of our C1 and C2 business districts, as part of the development review process, we're thinking that transit-oriented consideration should be part of that process. So we know that the strengths of our C2 districts, of our 2 commercial districts, the C1 district is focused around the train. The C2 district is really focused around the ferry. And there are pulses of people that come off of these modes of transportation, less the ferry, more the train, that don't have cars. And those are the people that we want to target. And we think that the C2 and the C1 district are natural transit-oriented development communities where the land uses can be designed with PSD techniques, and they're within easy walking distance to many of the things that they need to live in the village. I could talk about the locational criteria for TODs, but we have them. And you can see that they're within a quarter mile is the ideal walking. That's a 5-minute walk. You can get from one end of the commercial business district in C1 to the other end of the commercial business district. This is in the South Village, in the downtown. You can get to either end in way less than 5 minutes. So no matter where you live downtown, you can get to any of the parking lots within 5 minutes. So a 5-minute walk is considered to be reasonable within a transit-oriented development. So we're looking at that area.
So
I've
can
got-
I
Sure.
just interrupt? I want to ask the village attorney something real quick about this process. Is this to adopt something like this? I think it's a no-brainer, but does it require a board resolution, or is it just policy?
Generally speaking, if you're doing some type of master plan or something that's going to guide the village moving forward in its future, then yes, that would require board resolution and adoption and those types of things. If this is an enforcement philosophy of applications coming in an attempt to reduce the need for parking or parking alternatives when areas are developed, specifically areas that are, as Mr. Freeling mentioned, that would be ripe for this type of development, if you were going to incorporate this into a master plan, then yes. If it's as it just being, this is what we're trying to do to move it forward. Maybe at some day, if there is significant development on the south, you could incorporate it into a master plan of what you want this village to look like in 15, 20 years. But in the meantime, it seems to me that it's a proposal to what they're trying to do to alleviate the parking problem, to help vacant buildings become not in vacant. And that's really the role of the planning department and our senior planner, to try and get those things accomplished. So I love it, but I do not think it requires like an official vote of the board to implement. We hired Andy for this expertise.
Okay.
Thank you.
And can you, Andy, roll into, do any board members have any questions about this particular process / policy / technique? Because I just want to roll into something else, which is part of the Economic Opportunity Task Force initiative, which is in your report. And since you're here, I thought maybe I'd ask you about it, just to talk about it a little bit. And that is what you were doing with the county to look at, the business analysis software.
Sure.
To see what businesses are just, I know we're not at a point of conclusion on this, but you can just update the board on what it is you're working on.
Absolutely. I learned when I was with the county that there was software out there called a business analyst tool, and what that tool does is it helps you determine what businesses are lacking in certain geographic areas. So we were able to work with the county on the downtown area and the South Village area, the C2 commercial business district, to get some data. And what the business analyst tool does is it mines the census, and then it mines the periodic reports that the census folks do, and it assimilates data on the types of businesses that are in an area. So what I did with the county was we defined a geographic boundary, which was the C1 district and the C2 district, the 2 commercial business districts, and we asked the business analyst tool to tell us what businesses are there and what businesses aren't there, and based on usage and the economic characteristics of the people that live in the area. We have a higher age cohort. We have a higher disposable income. What types of businesses would work well in our commercial business districts? So we did get a preliminary report. Service businesses would go well there. We don't have as many as we could per geographic area. Something like there's nothing in Port Jefferson that I know of that the data showed where you could take your phone and repair it. So somebody living in one of our TODs, if their phone is not working right, they can't walk and fix their phone. So that is a business use that the the Economic Opportunity Task Force could use. That's information they could use to market certain types of businesses. We're also going through and itemizing all the storefronts and all the buildings and whether or not they're vacant or not. And we're providing that information as well to the Economic Opportunity Task Force. So they can use that data along with the data that comes out of the business analyst tool to target certain industries to come into the village. And with parking stall demand reduction, with specific targeted industries, we're thinking that we can facilitate and reinvigorate the vacant buildings in our community.
So adding on to that, the task force is also developing a survey for communities that circle Port Jefferson, and in addition to the people who live and work in Port Jefferson, to find out, like from the Stony Brook campus, which has 45,000 people, the Mather Hospital campus, which has 1,800, 2,100 employees, St. Charles campus, which has 1,800 employees, and then you have the school district, which has hundreds and hundreds of employees as well. So we can survey these folks who are most likely to be, the people who make up the foot traffic in the village, and see what they feel is missing, but with the end goal of really giving our commercial real estate representatives, our business improvement district, but more so the chamber and the commercial real estate folks and the landlords, an opportunity to really, from the perspective that we can pull in and the tools that we can provide, give them an opportunity to really showcase what is more likely to succeed in the village, businesses that are likely to succeed. I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I just wanted, thank you for updating this board on the developments to date. We're looking forward to launching this survey fairly soon, hopefully within the next few weeks. And we've already got participation from and interest from the community relations folks at Mather, at Stony Brook, and at St. Charles. And I'm sure the school district will be happy to participate in this as well. So I think it's coming together, and if we can provide a resource that really doesn't make it guesswork anymore, and sort of flies in the face of the feedback that people perceive is not a lot of foot traffic in the village, but we can kind of have the real data and information that contradicts that. I think we'll give people a real opportunity to have a reason to come here, provide business opportunities for people to come here.
Yes. The Department of Building and Planning is trying to provide as much data, as much information, as much facts as we can for these initiatives.
We have a question from the audience.
I'm really excited about your project, by the way. The village is walkable. That's great. I guess the one question I had is there any movement?
Wait, say that first part again.
As a resident, I am super excited to have the village be as walkable as possible. So yes. The question I had was about the Gap building in terms of a plan. Is there any movement with that? Because it's sort of sitting there for a lot of years now. So I was just wondering.
I can say that there is a lot of interest in the building, and we have been talking to investors and speculators on the building. So I've been here a year and a quarter, and there wasn't much activity on that building until very recently. So to answer your question, yes, there is some interest in that building.
Is anybody thinking about how it fits into this plan for what the village needs, though?
Yes, we don't have the
Yeah.
the question was, is there any consideration on what our needs are in the downtown area and everything like that. Anecdotally, we do have some ideas of what is desired downtown and what could work downtown, but we don't have anything from the business analyst tool yet that says specifically we need that use in that location.
Is there a spot on the website where residents can put in their ideas about what they'd like to see? Is there any kind
Yeah,
of?
it's Andy Freeling's email.
There will be a survey, right? And it'll go to, we will have a spot on the website where you can access the survey. We'll create a QR code for the survey, and we'll look to communicate it in as many ways as we possibly can, if that answers your question specifically. Okay. We're excited. I mean, it's not ready yet, but it's getting closer and closer. And the other thing we're doing is, there's a code in that relates to storefronts and vacant storefronts. And paraphrasing the code, and Andy might be able to be more specific about it, is it says if you have an open storefront for a month or longer, you need to do something active inside that storefront. And there are quite a few storefronts that are not doing that. So we have our new code enforcement folks who understand that code and will be helping us help voluntary compliance with that code. And I'm sure that the landlords, business owners would be happy to consult with the planning department on what might work in terms of, what can go inside of a building like that to reduce the perception of vacancy.
Right?
Yeah. Not the perception of, but just the vacancy,
Right. So
the
they would have to
building
put some
looks.
sort of active display or some sort of pictogram or something in the window that just relates some sort of activity and not dead space.
Pop-ups, something like that. I mean, I think it requires some strategic thinking and really collaboration with the tenants and the landlords.
Just on that, the window display code, thank you, the bid and James Luciano, for sending that comment letter. I thought it was really helpful. The first thing when I went to go read the code myself, the first thing I thought of was all the artwork that's at the schools could be an opportunity to, a solution for a problem, right? Because Stan and I Trustee Laux and I had a meeting there last week. And even as we were walking out, we were commenting on all of the beautiful artwork that was there, and we were really, really amazed just the caliber of it. So it really could be an opportunity to showcase our students and fix the vacancy problem.
Mhm.
So.
Noted.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Freeling? All right, Andy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Still you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mayor. In that letter, there were a number of other requests from the parking committee. Mayor, if you would like me to discuss.
Indeed, I
Okay.
would.
One of the items was parking meter display. So one of the requests was, the parking meters have a power save mode, and they turn off with inactivity. So when you walk up to the meter, they appear to not be on, where you would just press a button and they would turn on. One of the requests was we need to get the backlight on. So I've been trying to work with T2 to see if there's a way to schedule it so at night that they're on. It doesn't seem like that's a possible capability. So the solution is to have them on when the meters need to be used, so that we have the backlight, it'll be on all the time. So I've already scheduled the meters to do that. It should happen Thursday afternoon, so that I could go out and make sure that it's working properly and be ready for the weekend, so that everybody can know that the meters are in fact on the
Do you
weekend.
think we should cover the meters Monday through Thursday and remove the covers when parking is being enforced? There's only 12 of them, right?
There's 8.
Oh, there's only 8 of them, right? That's even less.
Yes, there's 8 active meters. I can say anecdotally that when we had some of the issues with trying to upgrade the meters last year, when if even one cover was on, it seemed to send a signal that the lots were closed and free. So, you know, it would be interesting that people see that cover and they go, that's it, we're not charging for parking at all. Kind of like a Pavlov's dog effect with those particular covers. But
That's what you
what I have
think?
been told by when I was walking around, as I tend to do with the parking meters. But
That could be.
we still have the covers, so willing to try again if it's. If people
Well, let's ask the parking committee what they think about that.
Another one is researching kind of like a parking meter cover to show, you know, like so that they're a little more well lit and easily recognizable. We're still doing some more research on that and reaching out to possible vendors to see what kind of information we can gather.
You know, on college campuses, they have something called a blue light to attract people to, well, it used to be emergency phones before they went to, you know, these handheld devices. But there's still, that may be something that maybe the parking committee would consider that as an option, because it's, you know, the structures that seem to be available are structures that surround the meters themselves, and that those are tend to be attractive nuisances that we've experienced, like with bus shelters and things like that. So if it's a shelter that surrounds the meter, it's just inviting graffiti and stuff like that, and vandalism. So I don't know, maybe start thinking about other options, and or you said there was a company on Long Island that was working with some New Jersey.
Yeah, so the company that installed our parking meters is integrated. They're called ITS, and I reached out to them today to try and follow up a little bit, and he said that recently they were able to work with a company on Long Island that fabricates some steel and aluminum shelters, and they installed something for parking meters for a client in New Jersey. So he was going to pass along the information. You know, didn't have a ton of details, so I asked him to, you know, just forward the information and take a look at it and see what we can get from that.
Maybe
What would the purpose of the enclosure be?
I'm not even sure it would be an enclosure. It could just be, you know, potentially something to go over the back. 2 things. One, you could create a light, like a solar light, if I remember the conversation from the parking committee correctly, to kind of show where the meters are, to provide kind of like a security light at night.
Yeah.
Also potentially a shelter from direct
Shelter for
rain.
training, right.
You know.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that some sort of solar roof, I've seen those in some other parking lots across the country.
You have?
Yeah, just so, and it powers the additional light that you need, right? If you want the thing to be on all the time, then.
If you have any of that information, trustee, please send it.
Yeah.
Please send it along. Yeah, I don't even know what this company produces, so we'll see when I receive the information.
Okay.
Along with the parking committee's recommendations, follow-up was on the monument sign for Mill Road coming in by the parking lot there. Going to follow up with DPW on the specifics of what needs to be on that sign and what that recommendation was. And then lastly, there was a recommendation on the simplification of the resident parking permit process. And one of the recommendation was to go to an affidavit, you know, to as a supporting proof of residency. I don't know if Attorney Moran could speak to that.
Just in general, when the question was broached, the idea that the parking and village residents access to parking as an amenity, this village has other amenities as well. So in an effort to be consistent, whatever we're using to gauge residency for use of other amenities should be consistent. We could always add to that list or detract from that list, but specific to parking, I would suggest, and I've been.
Your mic went on.
Made the recommendation that, to save time in the vetting of the information, that it includes a small paragraph or a jurad that says, this information is being submitted for use of a village amenity, and it's subject to penalty of perjury if the truth and accuracy of the documents being submitted, because from what I was being told is we have village employees sifting through leases and other things to try and determine, legal sufficiency. Is it a fake lease? Is it not a fake lease? Are they a resident? Are they not a resident? And if we hold people to a culpable criminal standard, that, if in fact you're submitting something false, you're subject to prosecution. If we find out, and the enforcement might cut down on some of that timing, and it will help keeping the documents required consistent regardless of the village amenity you're trying to obtain.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Moran. So that's all the updates that I have on parking, unless there's any questions.
So we talked about this earlier, and I'll just say that, I think based on our attorney's advice, I think, we'll be ready to go out with notifications to residents sometime within the next couple of days. That parking registration for permits will be active in the next few days, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, just two more items, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Been working with Country Club staff on procurement, and working with Tab Technologies, part of Social Butterfly, which is Teresa, who did a wonderful job earlier today, to try and set Edmonds up on the individual computers up at the Country Club so that they could have access to the procurement ability that other staff at Village Hall have, which should help them with their procurement needs and also stay on top of their budget. Have had a lot of very good conversations with both the pro shop staff and the maintenance staff to their needs, and the treasurer's office, and I know the clerk's office, were going to be available for any of their needs. So I'm really looking forward to getting that off the ground, which should happen by sometime next week, getting it started. And then
They're all jazzed about doing that too, right? That's going to make their job more efficient and effective. Yeah.
And then lastly, part of the resolutions, and this has been something that's been coming since the PKF O'Connor capital report summary. I'm presenting four or five resolutions to correct the capital fund, finally. So one of the budget amendments is going to be raising the revenues that we had already collected and the expenses tied from 2017 to 2023 in accordance with that PKF capital report summary and analysis. The next step is to do 2024. There's a budget amendment to do the activity for 2024 and for the activity that's occurred in 2025 related to specifically the bond appropriations, the bands redeemed from appropriations. So that resets the revenues and expenses. The next resolution would be, and this was on recommendation from Jeff Duboli, that we approve in, going back in time, those intra-fund transfers, the project moving money from one project to the other. So that will also be put before you. And then lastly is I'm going to be asking the board to allow me to adjust all of the balances to the following balances due to, from that report and the activity from 24 and 25. It's not as clean as just doing a budget amendment and making it, and it's just fixed, because when they did the software transfer over, some data from 2017 carried over, some of it didn't for some of the projects. Some of it's 2019 data. The software had glitches with some of the capital projects. But in essence, we're going to go from what is on the books right now is negative $223 million of an expense balance in capital fund to roughly negative 900,000. And that's with projects that haven't expended their funds yet. And ultimately, it leaves a hole based off the analysis after this is done of 1.26 million. in the capital fund. So
I'm a
that's-
visual learner.
Too many words.
Well-
That's okay.
We'll give you a diagram
Yeah,
next time.
thank you.
Yeah, it's helpful.
It will be visual once this, if the board approves these resolutions, and then I can distribute what it will look like. I can't do it ahead of time, unfortunately. The next step would be in March. I'll do another intra-fund transfer to close out old outstanding balances with any of the projects that have positive funds, so that we'll isolate where that funding shortfalls are, and all of those old accounts should be down to zero. So it'll really clean it up and allow us to plan for the future. And I'm going to stop there.
I have a question for you. We talked about this a little, so it's not coming from out of the blue, but what I'm going to ask you for is going to come out of the blue a little bit. So we have a $10 million, we borrowed $10 million in 2021. We agreed to ban $10 million in 2021 for two projects that were both perceived to be costing $5 million each. One was a phase 1 lower wall, and one was a phase 2 upper wall. So right now, you told me today that we are getting ready to pay off our required payment to phase 1 this year, which is like, how much?
The amount is around $475,000 is
Okay.
the payment due in April.
In April, so we have to pay that off. 475,000. Anyway, so what I'm wondering, and I wondered out loud to you today, is what does this $10 million, how does it hit our tax bills over the 15 years of the borrowing? And right now, the 6.2 or whatever we spent on phase 1 has already, we're paying that off already. Phase 2 will be an additional up to 1.25 million, unless the project goes over, which it won't. From my perspective, but if that comes due, what does that increase our bill? What is the bill? How does that impact the bill? And something that occurred to me today is that we remained under the tax cap last year when we passed the budget. And so we are paying off that bond without a tax increase, which is actually taking money away from services that we're providing to our residents, taxpayers, right? Because it's paying off that bond, which, not that that's a bad thing, but what I would like, not taking away service is a bad thing, but what I'm wondering is, can we keep up our services and pay off that bond? And what does that do? How does that hit the tax bills? So I'm not asking you to tell me right now, unless you know the answer already with the combined payments. But can you pull that out and share it with the board so we can talk about it in the future and have it as perspective?
Yes, I don't have all of that exact information in front of me, but I will work on that and get that ready and available to you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Stephen, when you said moving, transferring money per project, that's still within the capital project, right? So it's just so you get a better idea what the final cost of each project is.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
It's actually, it ties back to, for example, the 7-year audit we did of the capital and the general fund, right? So what you're hearing now are the final cleanups of the restatement of those prior, so that they're correct. And we know, what needs to be done. For the current, I think the only thing that I would want to add to what Stephen was talking about, he was talking about the current reductions in both revenue and expense for this fiscal year. So I just want to highlight that at this point in the fiscal year, it is a totally normal exercise to go back and look at every line item with every department head and figure out where did they not spend money, where did they overspend, how do we adjust it, because as you know, we want to end the year flat to budget, right? So we don't want to wind up in a deficit situation. The second important thing about that is it's a good exercise for the department heads to go through in preparation for thinking through their budget, right? And that goes back to, you know, what the mayor's asked for in terms of zero-based budgeting, et cetera, which is obviously best practice. The last thing I want to mention to you is, you know, we had spoken about the Clean Energy Communities program. And when we finally sort of got around to, you know, assigning, resources to it, the program had run out of money. So one thing I learned at NICOM last week was that that program has been funded again. And so the first thing we need to do is take the fixed asset inventory that we're doing, and that checks the box for something that immediately qualifies us for some money. So I'm going to circle back with Lisa and hit that one hard again.
Great.
Yeah. And the solar covers for the, for example, for the parking meters could qualify as something. But,
Right.
Now we can go back, look at that entire inventory of things that we've been doing to be energy efficient and see how we get additional funding for some of those
It's a great
efforts.
idea.
Thank you, trustee. And Mayor, going back to your previous question, if it pleases the mayor and the board, I could have that analysis ready for the agenda meeting.
Or
On the-
before, just send it to, the clerk can hand it out when you're done with it. So, all right?
Okay.
If it, if it's done before the agenda meeting, I'm sure we'd all like to just take a look at it and understand it. Maybe at the agenda meeting, we can ask questions, or at the next work session, we can ask questions.
Yeah, I see no reason that it can't be done no later than midweek.
Okay,
Next week.
thank you.
And that concludes my report, unless there's any other questions.
Okay, everybody ready? Are we ready to adjourn?
It should speed up from now, though.
We did cover a couple things that I wanted to talk about from my report, but the only other, I'll just run through a couple things on my report. I just wanted to give a shout out to Department of Public Works, Jared Hafner, and our grants administrator, Lisa Matto, for spending so much time, and with the clerk. And I guess, Stephen, the treasurer, you were involved in some of this, but for costs and estimates and things like that. But, they've really been spending a lot of time working on the remediation and mitigation of the effects of the storms from August 18th and 19th. And I know I report on this every meeting, but the list of projects is vast. And the team is coming out next week to take the FEMA crew is coming out to walk through and really take a look at some of the projects that will be considered for remediation, for reimbursement. That's the word I was looking for. So they're very significant, and again, to talk about them jinxes it, but I think once we have the deadline for that is March, like the last day of submitting new projects is March, I want to say early March. So if there are, things that we missed, there's still time to submit them. But I think we pretty much covered everything. And this has been hours and hours and hours and hours of their time just going through, answering questions and checking the boxes and showing pictures, and just very happy with the level of effort that they have put into that. And I think, I just want to just note that there are, zoning board meeting is this month on the 27th? 27th? It might have changed. Is it the 27th, Andy? Okay, thank you. So there's a few things on that. There's a application on from a property on Belterre Road. There's an application from a property on Beach Street. One is commercial, one is residential, a variance request, and a residential variance request. And then on East Main Street, there is a request for a mixed-use apartment building project that the zoning board will be hearing from the applicants on. And then on the 13th, which is tomorrow, there's a planning board meeting that will take place right here. And there are 3 residential applications and a commercial application. The commercial application is it's the reduction of a performance bond, but the project is to expand a proposed expansion of an existing deli on the corner of Linden and Main Street on the west side. So that's interesting. I just wanted to mention that. And yeah, that's the extent of my report. And a lot of things that I wanted to talk about have been discussed already. So I'm going to go to my right and ask Trustee Laux to give his update.
I've got quite a bit to report on. I'll start with the Village Center and Recreation Department. Our Village Center, I think, is the busiest place in the village. January, 12,333 people passed through the Village Center for one reason or another. The farmers market is presently up there indoors at the center. We had 33 vendors there this last weekend. We're presently taking reservations for the summer market. That will close out, so if there's people out there looking for space, they should be contacting the Village Center, talking to Renee to get a spot. Last week we had our Parks and Recreation Council meeting. Al Gordon, who runs our summer softball league, presented a proposal for a preseason softball tournament to be held up at the Joe Earlman Field. This kind
At
of
Haywood Park.
Yes. This is kind of a unique format in that each batter only gets one pitch. He wants to bring in 8 teams. It's kind of a quick moving tournament. It'll be a 2-day tournament. The council gave approval for the use of the field. We had to discuss costs as the Parks Department, our Parks Department, will be preparing the field for use both on Saturday and Sunday, which is overtime for our Parks Department. So we gave that to Al, and it's going to be built into the cost, the entry cost for the teams that are coming in, so that they will be paying for the maintenance of the field. The Recreation Department is presently accepting applications for summer jobs. Time is moving quickly. These lifeguards, instructors, swimming instructors, and counselor positions are available. If anyone out there is interested, they should also get up to the Village Center and get their applications in. You want to be a lifeguard? Last week, with regards to the upcoming public hearing pertaining to the no standing postings along the south side of Old Post Road, Trustee Hill and I met with school district officials. The superintendent was there, high school principal, 2 board members. I believe the head of buildings and grounds was there. We discussed this proposal in the interest of safety of the students as well as the residents in the surrounding neighborhood. Discussions were very, very positive. The school district officials are very supportive of our proposal. They actually additionally came up with a couple of other suggestions that kind of agreed to bring back here. I think we've discussed it one time before. One was the feasibility of an additional speed table. Maybe Trustee Hill has the location of that, and he can talk about that in a minute here. The other was a possibility of some kind of a flashing speed light. If you go up to Belterre, go down Belterre Road, they have a light down there saying your speed is such and such. It's kind of a permanent light. Even a more effective one is if you go out North Country, when you approach the Mount Sinai School District, it really gets your attention because it's got a flashing red light.
Leave the speeding stance, so slow down.
Yeah. It tells you how, it gets your attention. Those are two items that they suggested that we look into. I did explain to them about what we're going through with the code. They also are still on board with perhaps having code over there in the morning. So I don't know if Trustee Hill has some.
Sorry, our microphones are dropping left and right. Yeah, the only thing I'll add is the possible location of a possible additional speed table is at the top of that hill. So Roosevelt and Brook is what they were talking about. Because right now, you kind of go down the hill and then the speed table is at the bottom, which for a while it wasn't painted, so I'm pretty sure a lot of folks were hitting it pretty hard. But it might make sense to force you to slow down at the top of the hill, and then you're not, just picking up speed right before that speed table, I think was the thought process there.
And that's a DPW referral, right?
Yeah, and then finally, I spoke with a board member today, and the board will not only be writing a letter, but they will be present when we do our public hearing to offer their support. This is going to be, I think, a challenge. We're going to have to re-educate parents who drop off their children, who double park, who do U-turns, and create quite a mess up there during drop-off in the morning and pick up in the afternoon, to the point that if you look at it, it's definitely a hazard. If we ever have to go up through there, and I've said this many times, we've not had anything happen up there to this point, but if you go up there and watch at dismissal time, you can see the kids darting out between cars. You can see the U-turns. You can see the speeders coming down the hill. Something like this, and they are going to promote this through the PTA. They're also going to join with us in requesting that we launch this at the beginning of the school year, and that we try to get Suffolk down there to saturate the road the first week or two of school, to maybe send a message out there that has been a long time coming. That's all I have on the school.
Can I ask one question about
Sure.
that, Stan? What we discussed at our last meeting was, is there an alternative? So all those options and activities sound viable and strong and good. Where are they going to drop off? Is the district going to come back with a plan on where those students can be dropped off?
I believe they've looked at every possible solution that can't work. They thought they could come up through, as I mentioned last time, drop off somewheres around the tennis courts and come up through the circle and go out. The drop-off will be on the right-hand side as you come up. It will not be on the left side. There'll be no standing over there.
So,
I'll add, I think the school did talk about alleviating their own traffic issues inside their campus for the next school year too. So they were talking about changing the number, possibly changing the number of buses they have. One of the issues that they have in the morning is there's no one to accept the kids when the buses get there. So the buses wait for part of the time. So if they can have, if the buses can drop off, more cars could also drop off inside the campus, because the problem is everyone's trying to avoid that ring in the campus. So figuring out how to get folks flowing through there. So the school, the school officials did talk about those issues as well.
okay. And the buses have the stop, like if they open the door, the stop sign goes out and they have the camera going off, right?
Right.
And that happens when they're parked in that in the circle too, right? So you cannot cannot pass those buses. Is that a Board of Education? Do we know if they can waive that law, or that's kind of a good law, right? But is there a way to prevent?
Yeah, I asked that question, if there's a way that they could waive that. They said, no, that's a state law, they cannot waive the.
Every single district has to
lights, has to
comply with
by
that?
Once the school's bus stops, the lights go on, the sign comes out.
I thought the
camera
Board of
automatically-
Education had jurisdiction.
The camera, they tell me that
Okay,
it wasn't.
all
So
right.
The camera comes
We,
on, and then there's subject to $100 or $200 fine, whatever the fine
Yeah.
is.
We did also talk a little bit about why the children are being dropped off rather than taking buses. Some of those big buses that hold 44 students are showing up with 5, 6, 8 children on them, and I asked the question about if they've looked into smaller fleet, so the kid doesn't have to get on the bus on the way home and ride for 25 minutes to get home. These are school district problems.
Yeah. Yeah, but
They're spending, I mean, the state has now mandated that every child is entitled to a bus, even if he's next door. It's not like it used to be where if you were half a mile away or a mile away, they had a formula who got busing and who didn't. It's a big expense for the school district. It becomes a problem with the school district.
So this public hearing is still a work in progress, right? Like, we
Yes.
wouldn't have a hearing if, yeah.
It was tabled.
Yeah, it's tabled, but I think before we untable it, we need to have a very solid alternate plan from the school district about what they're doing for the families that utilize that area. So
Okay.
it's it's collaboration, clearly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so far the solutions are all on the village. I want to move on to the country club. As you may or may not be aware, our general manager up at the country club has resigned. The mayor has asked me if I would step in to assist in the operations of the club, and I said that I would. I can say that this last week has been a marathon of meetings with total staffs and also with individual staffs and committees. I'm quite excited about stepping back in. The mayor and I have met with the maintenance staff up there, the pro staff up there. We met with the grievance committee. We've met with the chairperson of the CCMAC. We've met with the Board of Governor President. I did briefly meet with our treasurer here yesterday. I came in at the back end of a meeting. The golf season is soon going to be on us, and I have a lot of catching up to do. I'm very confident that with the help and support of the staffs and the committees, the treasurer and the mayor, that the club will not only continue to be an excellent path, but it will actually improve, I think. One of the first tasks at hand is to establish bylaws for the Board of Governors. It's been operating up there for about a year without one. I have, with quite a bit of outside help, completed a couple of drafts. Today I worked on draft number 3. Every time I go back through the bylaws, you kind of find things that are missing or misworded or have to be added. I hope that these bylaws can be completed before the opening of golf season. I think they will. Golf memberships are coming in at a rapid pace right now. I spoke with Danielle this morning. Our first deadline for membership is coming up this Friday. Starting on Saturday, the discounted rate that we're offering is going to go up $100. See, the mayor's doing hers now. As of today, we had 255 members signed in for the upcoming season, and she told me she still had a pile of checks on her desk. She didn't get in till almost noon today because of the snow. They had a delayed opening in Longwood, I believe it was. I have recommended the reestablishment, this is something new, of a range membership that was not included on the original membership rate sheet. This is something that we've had for many, many years. This range membership would include the practice area. The cost of the membership, has to go to the CCMAC for approval. The recommended cost was $750 for the year. That will go to the CCMAC on February 18th for their approval, and then it'll definitely come back to us. And the range membership, as well as all of the memberships up at the country club, include our fitness center. They're all entitled to use that fitness center, for which we are now looking into a fob system to put on the doors up there, especially to the fitness center. It's not something where you can go in with the old system and prop the door open. It's going to know who it is that goes in, and when that person leaves, we're going to know when they leave. If something is missing or something happens up there, we're going to know exactly who was in there and what time they were in there. I believe Pat, our superintendent, has already received some kind of a...
Did he send that to you, Stephen?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And the last thing I have is that the mayor and I are working with Sylvia and Civil Service to upgrade Danielle's position somewhat, change her position. Say what?
Personnel.
I
So,
got you, okay, I understand.
so part of my report, trustee,
She'll-
you're absolutely,
she'll talk
gotcha.
about it, too.
you're
No, I got
absolutely
you.
right. Part of my report is that you and I have met with, you were in one of the meetings, and I independently am meeting with various employees village-wide to determine whether their civil service titles match their duties and how we can expand. A
Right.
lot of our employees are, to their credit, very willing, able, and wanting to expand their duties and tasks to help the village, and they're very excited to do so. you sat in on one of those meetings, so we
Right.
are working toward that end.
And the one thing that I can concrete announce is that we're looking into moving the membership office back to where it used to be, to become more efficient. That's it.
Okay. Stan, I just want to say thank you for, yeah, I've seen you more these past 2 weeks than I've seen you in like 19 months. So, and that's a good thing. And I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've put into catching up and also doing things that you did things in a week or two that haven't been able to be done, which just haven't been done in a year. So that gratitude to you. I think the membership's going to be very happy, and I think the staff is really, really jazzed to start the season. They are announcing soon that Modern Links project, right? So there's a, do you want to talk about that?
I don't know an awful lot about it, but I believe it's a company uptown that offers virtual golf.
Yeah, bays, like practice bays.
Right. On a day where our club is closed, you can go up there and you can play a round of golf, or you can get a lesson.
At the old course?
Yeah, at the old course. We don't have the new course loaded into it yet, but
We'll get Port Jeff loaded into it.
I'll find.
They will put our course
Yeah.
in a virtual Port Jeff Country Club course too. They have a ton of courses loaded up already, just like PGA Superstore does, just like Top Golf does. But they have 3 bays.
You can play
and-
Pebble Beach if you want to, Bob.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Spyglass. So that I think the country clubs, the pros are going to be sending out information about that to the entire membership. And so there's things moving, there's things happening. They're working on getting things done for the membership in the upcoming season. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you, Stan, for stepping in, stepping up, and really taking initiative to move everything forward. And I think the staff is really the most important thing right now is that the staff is thrilled and feels energized to hit the ground running for the coming season. Thank you. So, Trustee Ugrinsky, let's go to you.
I actually, sorry. Yeah, my report was actually the follow-on to my remarks following Stephen's. However, the Budget and Finance Committee will be meeting next Thursday again on its regular schedule. We essentially, after all the work that was done related to the audit, it seemed like a good idea to let them have a break. Both of the committees that I run meet every other week, so in an effort to get things done. So they'll be back on track, and next week, on Tuesday, we'll have the Port Jeff Power Plant meeting. I know that you provided me some additional history that we had not had, and I worked with Sylvia to get a number of items signed out. So I'm spending quite a bit of my time at home now, sorting it into chronological order, and we'll summarize so that we'll actually have a timeline for all of the LIPA conversations and be able to translate all of that narrative into English so that we use that as a starting point. And Bob, I'm actually looking for a lot of input from you because your name is all over many of those documents, so I will need some context.
That's the other Bob Giuliano.
The evil twin, is that one? No, so I'm looking forward to that.
Be glad to help.
Yeah. And that concludes my remarks.
All right, just consider if it would be helpful for our grants administrator to give an update to your Budget and Finance Committee. They're meeting next week or the following week?
No, next week.
Okay, so that's, next week is like school break week, so there's maybe just in an upcoming
Sure.
meeting outside of next week's.
What I'd like to do is work with Stephen on the, sort of on the visuals, so we have, something that provides what you were talking about, like what
You
are
like
our
that?
grants? And
You like that?
I did like that, yeah, that visual. But I also think that we need a chart that gives you a visual depiction of where we stand on our debt payments. That'll flow into a multi-year forecast of what that does, so that we incorporate that and can communicate that out, relative to tax implications.
Okay, great. Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Trustee Hill.
Thank you. I don't have much to add since our new code supervisors presented on a lot of what was in their report already, so which is fantastic. But welcome aboard, Supervisor Cooper and Supervisor Flamia. The last meeting at the Public Safety Advisory Council, no formal recommendations came out of that, but we kind of talked about some of the, more just updates on old business that we had going on. We did get a draft back on the who to call graphic, so I think we might need to edit it down a little bit, or, but it's better to start with everything and then whittle down from there. And then once I think it's in a better place, I'll share, certainly with code, but everyone on the board for their feedback too, to see
Great.
what's most helpful.
Yeah.
And then our next meeting is the first Monday in March, which I believe is the 3rd or the 2nd. So if residents have any safety concerns, please reach out to me or the clerk, and we're happy to discuss it at the
And
council.
where you meet here in Village
We meet
Hall,
here
right?
at Village Hall, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Trustee Giuliano.
It's me. All right, starting out with DPW, and the word of the day is snow. They've been very busy clearing, snow and ice, and they've done a fantastic job over there. And thanks to DPW and to Parks. And I think for one of the snow events, they even had somebody from the country club, because they were down a couple of men. So somebody from the country club worked with them too, as far as clearing the snow and ice. So big thank you for that. They've done a tremendous job. You go out on the streets and it looks like snow didn't even fall. So they've done a great job. So speaking of that, they had Highway 8 had a hydraulic leak, and they repaired it in-house, which is great. They didn't have to send it out to mechanic to be repaired. They worked with the Ice Festival, which was January 25th. They worked with BID to place the barricades down and to clean up the ice after the event was over. They have been working on replacing damaged, worn street signs, pothole repairs ongoing throughout the village. Repair and maintenance to the backhoe was another item that was done in-house, and a special thanks to Matt Molander. He's able to replace a lot of the rotted and worn hoses and hydraulic systems, rebuilding the pistons, and saved the village over $3,000 by doing the work in-house. So thanks for that. As far as Parks update, again, they were doing daily cleanup, ice removal over at the rink from the Zamboni, with the Zamboni scrapes off the ice. They pick up and they put it in a certain place so that it can melt and just go back into the ground. They've been conducting repair to play equipment at Rocket Ship Park, and they also assisted the Ice Festival, the prep and the cleanup and snow plowing, and also with snow plowing and sanding. Coastal Erosion Committee, they meet next on March 6th, and they're hoping that they can have a meeting or get some questions answered from the engineers. Some questions that have arisen during the meetings that we've had regarding the bluff and regarding Phase 2. And I think what we'll do is have them submit a series of questions, see if we can submit that to GEI instead of setting up a personal meeting with them. That might be the best way to operate. Parks and Rec Committee, as Stan said, they met and talked about the softball. Next meeting is March 5th for the Parks and Rec. Conservation Advisory Committee is meeting next Tuesday on the 18th. Tree Committee is gearing up for the Arbor Day Festival, or Arbor Day Tree Giveaway. Their next meeting is March 5th, and they've proposed a code change or addition to the code as far as tree removal, or the tree removal and replacement code, as far as when people put in a permit to remove a tree or two trees, that there's some sort of inspection involved there too. So I'm going to pull the code out and see where we can do it, and then pass it along and see if we can do that as a code change. As we mentioned before, I attended the NICOM Winter Legislative Meeting. There are a number of topics that came up there. The website reform that we talked about, changing to .gov. There was a briefing on Governor Hochul's proposed state budget. It includes keeping this AIM funding, Stephen, you'll be glad to hear this, AIM funding the same level. They have also proposed an additional temporary increase for additional funding. Again, they're stressing that it's temporary, and they're hoping to make that a permanent part of the budget. But right now, it's a proposal in her budget for a temporary increase for additional funds. There's mandatory cybersecurity training that she is proposing in her budget. There's also opportunity for capital grants for childcare, $25 million to local governments to support childcare efforts. So if it passes the budget, there might be something, that we do over at the Village Center. So there might be some opportunity there. There's also a short-term rental registration and reform proposal. It's a code. It's a chapter change actually to the state code. So if it passes both houses, there's an opportunity for the village to receive some occupancy taxes for short-term rentals within the village. And we'll have more information as soon as we know that that has passed both houses. And that's it. And my next Saturday sit-down is this Saturday, the 15th, over at the Village Center from 9:30 to 11.
Wait, aren't you doing it somewhere else?
No, we couldn't work out, the schedules didn't work out, so we're going to try for March.
Okay.
We're going to try for March over it. And then I'm going to reach out to other vendors and see if they want to host it as well. It's a good opportunity for people to go to different stores that maybe they haven't been to, and we can try it out.
All right, I just want to add to your report, I don't know if it was mentioned, but Andrew Wentz is back out from being off on leave after that horrific accident that he was in. So we're happy to have him back, but at the same time, we lost Chris to an injury, our mechanic. So, but anyway, it's just DPW and Parks seem to manage with a lot of ins and outs, like legit, injuries and whatnot. So we're just grateful to those who are there and putting in the extra time and getting the work done, because anybody notice that anybody's out? No, exactly. Right. Exactly. So good job done. It's really tremendous, and we just really appreciate them. And we're looking at another storm coming up next week, right?
Thursday.
10 inches, something like that?
Yeah, 10 inches.
Today, they're saying 10.
10 to 20.
10 to 20. It could be anywhere between 2 and 922 inches.
It needs to get down to 1 to 2. Would be preferable.
Yeah. And 0, yeah. We'll do a 0.
1 to 2.
All right, Clerk Perillo, your turn.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick announcement, our offices will be closed on Monday in observance of President's Day. Going to my report under bids and RFPs, Hayduck Engineering is in the process of reviewing the responses that we received for our hazard mitigation RFP, and we are hoping to have a recommendation in place for our agenda meeting for upcoming this month.
Great.
Going to boards and committees, the Board of Ethics will conduct its quarterly meeting in Village Hall at 5:30 p.m. on the 19th of March. Any inquiries to the Board of Ethics can be sent to ethics@portjeff.com. We touched a little bit on employment and civil service issues. My deputy Mary does yeoman's work every single day of communicating with me about everything that is happening village-wide, civil service-wise, and then communicating that to civil service in the most efficient way possible, which is always a challenge. Our summer camp director position is reopened at the request of Director Lemmerman. So I posted that on Indeed, and that will be open for another 2 weeks. In addition to that, we're working with Director Freeling on open positions in his department as well. Moving to resolutions, there are some that are election-related. One is waiving residency requirements for for inspectors to be village residents. This is something that we did last year as well, in the event that we cannot fill our needs with village residents only. We have a resolution abolishing the conducting of the village voter registration days, and we need to abolish because we held them last year. So you will see a resolution for that. We did decide last year that is not at all cost-effective for the village to conduct that. Steve Munoz, on behalf of the Retailers Association, is asking to once again conduct the busking program. And he has letters of support from various of our community partners. We have a resolution on this for the agenda of the 26th, approving a proposal by GEI, but I am asking that we please go out of process on 2 agenda items. One is the resolution for GEI, and just by way of explanation, that is for the required annual monitoring reports. The first annual monitoring report was submitted by me personally to all agencies as required, and I have asked for an extension for this second annual monitoring report, which is, of course, a requirement. It was our impression that GEI was submitting that report, the first annual monitoring report. That is not the case. So we are working closely with GEI to ensure who and when the second report will be completed. But it is time sensitive, as is task order number 3, which was circulated today. That came from Hayduck Engineering, and that is for consulting services related to the tanks at the Port Jefferson Country Club. So those 2 being time sensitive, I'm asking that we please vote on those this evening. So with that, I will offer resolution number 1, 21225, resolution approving the proposal submitted by GEI Consultants for the preparation and submission of required New York State DEC and New York State DOS annual compliance reports for the East Beach post-construction bluff monitoring at a total cost of $9,300. May I have a motion? Thank you, and a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Discussion? Just to add something to what you said about this.
Yes, Mayor.
That is that in the first proposal, we learned a lot from that first proposal and that first monitoring report activity that took place. And now we have a keen eye on it. And one of the things that we asked GEI to do is to confirm that they would be submitting the report upon the conclusion of the monitoring report immediately to DEC and DOS, which are the 2 responsive regulatory agencies. And then the other thing that we asked them to include in their estimate, their proposal, is that we have a meeting immediately following the completion of the report, the study,
Yes.
so that we can see what they're indicating that needs to be done versus, and then setting up the appropriate actions and the action plan and the project management thereof. So nothing else falls through the cracks. And then one final thing, and that would be that we ask them for a proposal for the following 3 years. So those don't fall through the cracks, and we don't have to wait until we remember in February that we need this report. So we want them to be on the, have it on their calendar to remind us, okay, in November, let's get going on that report because it's due in January.
Thank you,
All
Mayor.
right,
for
so I just
mentioning
wanted to add those things.
that. Thank you.
Who's invited to the hour-and-a-half meeting that's referenced in the? Like GEI is participating in an hour and a half meeting with the village. Is that open for
I'm not sure what page you're looking
trustees?
at.
Looking at the actual proposal.
The estimate?
Yeah.
Is it dated
letter.
February 11th?
Yeah, no, 7th. But it does reference the meeting that you referenced. The hour and a half
Mm.
meeting
was looking at the
after
survey.
submission of the final report.
Who's attending that?
No, yeah, is that
Yeah,
open? Can we-
it is a meeting between the engineering firm and their client.
Okay.
So-
Are the trustees allowed to?
Well, two.
Two?
Two.
Okay,
Yeah. Yep.
all right.
But sorry. The reports are public documents.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
And so any resident could read it, right?
Correct.
Could we just do a public meeting then? Is that too onerous to do?
So
So this
it's
way
a
all the
work, it's a working, and I understand what you guys are getting at, right? But it's a work session, so we're gonna.
I actually just wanted to come with a post-review and maybe just sit in on the discussion. That was not where I was going. Like, or that was the extent of what I was asking, really.
So it's a report-based internal discussion,
Yeah.
is I
Well,
think.
it's an action plan. You know, it's just, we're developing an action plan to determine how and
Yeah.
what to address in the monitoring study.
Mhm.
So this year is going, I think, to be quite different from last year, even though I can't say that anything would have changed last year, because I don't know if this board would have had, and we didn't ask, but we had several walks along the beach
Mhm.
that, and asked vendors, does it make sense to do anything with this right now, since it's a bad planting season? It's gonna cost a lot of money, and we're gonna need to get engineering plans and estimates, but instead of doing it 3 more times, wait to do it 1 time if we're gonna do it.
Mhm.
So that was the advice that we got in real time, if my memory serves, but, so for this, any mitigation would require, yes, I think, the engineering firm to present to this board, perhaps in a work session. Maybe that's where we do go over this report, right?
Yeah, that works. I'm just thinking about this
Yep.
from a fiscal and forecasting.
We might as well plan
Yeah.
for that, right?
Yeah.
I think, because I think
Mayor,
it
if I
is.
may?
Yeah.
It's quite possible the purpose of that meeting is to identify possible areas to which to spend money,
Yeah.
and for the elected village board to decide how to prioritize those projects based on financial viability. So I don't think it's a, let's move that hour and a half meeting to a presentation. I think both are necessary.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and honestly, the financial aspects of this are really just one lens through which we need to consider it, right? So that makes sense to me.
Is a reporter wants to ask a question during a work session, or does a resident want to ask a question during a work? Contracts?
I was just wondering, it says that the village or someone else does the photos, inspections, and narratives for the report. I was just wondering who's gonna do that? Is the village employees gonna do that?
I can't hear everything that you're saying, so.
I'm just reading under the project schedule.
Is this a reporter question? Let's talk offline if you want to ask questions about it. Yeah, we should talk offline, because it's a conversation. This is a work session, Mr. Franco, so it's not a Q&A. If you want to submit questions for the board to review and evaluate, you can submit them to the clerk.
I thought since I wasn't a reporter, it would, since I have a question about transparency, but no problem, I'll submit it.
we're happy to read your question into the record at the next meeting and answer the question in public. Happy to do that.
For the public's edification and just for further understanding, work sessions, unless invited to speak, it's meant for the board to vet these projects, these proposals, these contracts. It's for the public to watch that, and that is the transparency aspect of the work session meeting. And I remind the public that there's open comment. If you hear something at the public meeting, if you hear something that you would like, there's always the opportunity to submit questions to the village clerk. But and I heard you say you were gonna run, so your opportunity to participate in these meetings may be in a few months. So, I understand. I mean, not just you, but in general, like, because it's easy sometimes when you sit up here and people ask the 1-2 questions that you could just, or the easy question, 2 + 2 is 4. Yes, I can answer that question, but then the next person asks the more intricate question, which takes us off our work agenda topics, and steers us away. So I'm always going to hit my green light at a work session when the public starts to speak, whether you're a reporter or a member of the public, unless invited to give a presentation by this board.
Okay, we were discussing the GEI proposal, right? And
Yes,
that did we conclude the discussion? Anybody else any questions? All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. We have resolution number 21225, resolution approving task order number 3, submitted by Hayduck Engineering for consulting services related to the tanks at the Port Jefferson Country Club. May I have a motion? Thank you.
Second?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Mayor, that concludes my report. I've kept it brief unless anyone has questions.
Sylvia, question.
Yes.
At the last meeting, we talked about and I don't remember what the exact wording was, but when we were going to send out to a company to see if they wanted to, if there was interest in doing a long-term plan for the country club.
An EOI, expression of interest.
Expression of interest, thank you. Has that been sent out to anything? Anybody?
It has not yet.
Okay. Have you put it together yet? Is anything put together? What I'm asking is, when it is, if you could just pass it along to CCMAC. I think there's people on the CCMAC that say that they can participate, or they can put that plan together. Maybe we can pass it along to them and then see if there is an interest in the CCMAC of putting something like that together too.
Well, I do know, I can sort of answer that, and remind Trustee Laux that in his original draft of the bylaws, he included a strategic planning committee under the BOG. Obviously we will have there will be a strategic planning component and participation component in that, and it of course will be open to golf membership and country club, people who are interested, residents, whoever's interested. I think the strategic planning committee will be established in the Board of Governors, and then volunteers will be accepted. But that's just in the Board of Governors.
I
Because
was
of the
thinking more,
country.
not the committee, but in actually, putting it together, the actual plan. Instead of going out to a company, maybe there's somebody, maybe the CCMA or the Board of Governors, or in combination of both.
Let's talk about that, Bob. What does that look like to you?
I don't know. A couple of people come and said, yeah, this is something that CCMAC could do.
I would add to that, that's, there seems to have been a fair amount of work that people are saying, was
Exactly.
previously done. And I think it would be prudent to try to collect that data, or at least that information, those reports, and use that to sort of further inform the process or the end work product.
How about we do the request for the expressions of interest and see what the capabilities of the professional firms look
Sure.
like
That's an idea.
versus, I don't know, maybe one of the maybe the committee that was working on the North Campus, planning steering committee could produce some of their, have you seen any of the work product that they've put together?
Nope.
Maybe they'll be happy to share that with you, and then you can sort of look at both, and we'll look at it all and say, what makes sense for this project? Because it doesn't cost any money to request.
Right.
Right?
If the board considers the expression of interest almost like, a job application. We have this job opening. Is anyone interested? Right? And the whole, once we decide, if we decide that we find a capable, reputable entity that has interest, then I agree with the mayor and Trustee Urginski that's when you'll pull all that information together and give it to that entity if they're decided to be retained and say, hey, and that's when the public process starts. That's when the CMAC can weigh in.
Right,
And the board, or the
make
board
it a-
goes. But right now, we're just looking for applications.
Understood, it's not part of this process, right? But I do want to note that at some point, it would be appropriate to say, if you have worked on a project that relates to this one, and you have materials that would be relevant, please provide them.
And I would submit that that time is now.
In fact,
No harm in gathering the information and having
in
it ready.
fact, I unsolicited got a sort of a layout and outline for a strategic plan from somebody who's on the North Campus Steering Committee, right? And I said, sounds like you want to apply to be the strategic planning and considered part of the, is this a response to the expression of interest? No. I don't want to do that. So maybe they've thought differently in between, but it seemed like it was an expression of interest. So,
Well, I just feel how, there needs to be a mechanism for us to invite residents who have participated in this process previously to dig up those materials and say, hey, here is some information that we
research we
worked
did,
on
right.
that would be, relevant. Yes, I know.
I leave that to
Stan
the
actually
liaison.
has some of that secret documentation.
sorry, Stan.
But yeah,
I've been told I have sharp elbows anyway.
no.
So, okay.
Just because you got the wrong text?
No. No. Okay. That concludes our reports unless Attorney Moran has
Just
something.
quickly, I also met with the new head of code. We had a great meeting talking about how to integrate, the ideas that he has moving forward and what code's going to look like and how it would flow through the courthouse as well. And it was a very productive meeting. And my other meetings, fun and exciting meetings I had, will be subject of executive session discussion.
Okay. Which leads us to our next agenda item. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
To discuss a contract negotiation and the particular performance of a specific employee.
To discuss, with the microphone on, a contract negotiation and the particular performance of a specific employee.
At 7:42 PM.
Oh, there you go. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Executive session, we go. And so for the benefit of will we be voting coming back?
It's not expected.
Okay, not expected to come back. Thank you very much.